All right. Issurei biah chapter 14. This is where we're going to learn how to perform conversions. Although that's not a good way to say it because we don't actually convert anybody. The person converts themselves. We witness them immerse into a mikvah, and that completes the conversion process. So don't take my word for it. We're going to see that in the commentary. That's exactly what happens. So halakha 1. What is the procedure when accepting a righteous convert? When one of the Gentiles comes to convert, we inspect his background. If an ulterior motive for conversion is not found, we ask him, why did you choose to convert? Don't you know that in the present era the Jews are afflicted, crushed, subjugated, strained, and suffering comes upon them? That's what we ask. If he answers, I know, would it be that I am able to be part of them? We accept him immediately. Okay, the word there in English, they're saying immediately. The word there in Hebrew is miyad. Mem yud dalet. Ask anybody who's fluent in Hebrew, what does miyad mean? Immediately, right away, without delay. Okay, there's no, oh, we'll accept you in 3 years after a long conversion process, and after we teach you more than the converting rabbi. We accept them immediately. That's the procedure. Now you might say, okay, well, but it says um, when they come to convert, we inspect his background. If a motive for conversion is not found, then we ask him this question, where he decides to join, and then we accept him immediately. So what does this mean? We inspect his background. Well, that's not really tied to a 3-year conversion process. You're not inspecting his background if you accepted him into the conversion class. So it's gonna give you an example here. There's two things that they give you an example of that we're looking for of what that ulterior motive would be. So let's look at halakha 2. Once he has accepted and we accept him miyad immediately, we inform him of the fundamentals of the faith, i.e., the unity of God and the prohibition against worship of false deities. We elaborate on this matter. There's a commentary here because they are the fundamentals of our faith. So that's just saying the same thing we just read. We inform him about some of the easy mitzvot and some of the more severe ones. Now, notice here that it doesn't say we tell him about all of them. It says specifically some of the easy mitzvot and some of the more severe ones. At no point is it saying we tell you all 613 of the mitzvot and then all the halakha and the minhagim. Make sure you know how to say every berachot. It says we give them some of them. The very next sentence, we do not elaborate on this matter. Okay, so this is emphasizing we do not teach him, all the particulars of everything. So we teach him some of the easy mitzvot and some of the more severe ones. We do not elaborate on this matter. What does the commentary there say? This law, okay, law, not minhag, not custom, not tradition, quoted by the Shulchan Aruch, indicates that it's sourcing Yoreh De'ah 268.2, indicates that even the opinions which require a convert to accept the observance of the mitzvot do not require him to accept all of the mitzvot individually. Instead, he must make a general commitment to conform to Jewish practice. That's it. So, according to the Mishnah Torah, we give him some of the light mitzvot, some of the more severe ones, and we do not elaborate on this matter. Even the Shulchan Aruch, which we're going to look at, which comes after this, says the exact same thing. You make a general commitment. There is none of this. Oh no, we have to teach them years worth of stuff. If they disagree with anything, we can't convert them. That's not the law. Okay, we inform him of the transgression of not leaving lechet, peah, the corners of the field, the second tithe, and we inform him of the punishment given for violating the mitzvot. What is implied? We tell him, before you came to our faith, if you partook of fat, you were not liable for your soul to be cut off. If you desecrated Shabbat, you were not liable to be stoned to death. Now, after you convert, if you partake of fat, you are liable for your soul to be cut off. If you desecrate Shabbat, you are liable to be stoned to death. We do not teach him all the particulars. Now, notice it gave you two examples of what we tell them and the punishment. And then we do not teach him all the particulars. So this lets you know we do not have to teach him, you know, an equivalent of a college degree about Judaism. We give him some of the mitzvot, and we do not teach him all the particulars. Why? Lest this cause him concern and turn him away from the good path to a bad path. The good path being the path that he's on, coming to convert. The bad path being whatever path he was on before or where he would go if he gets concerned and leaves the path of conversion that he's on. So we do not want to give him too much to say, we got to turn you away 3 times and scare you and tell you what a burden it is to be Jewish. No, it's the opposite. For at the outset, we draw a person forth with soft and appealing words. As Hosea states, with cords of man I drew them forth, and then continues with bonds of love. Let's look at the two commentaries on that. I drew them forth. This can be interpreted as referring to the warnings concerning the transgression. We had two specific examples. And then he continues with bonds of love. This can be interpreted as referring to the warning concerning the transgressions, and the encouragement based on the knowledge of the reward for the mitzvot with bonds of love. So we see we're not supposed to be turning them away and scaring them off. We're supposed to actually be giving them the reward and encouraging them to continue. Okay, Halakha 3. Just as he is informed of the punishment for disobeying the commandments, so too is he informed about the reward for their observance. We tell him that by observing the mitzvot, he will merit the life of the world to come. Interesting. So we don't tell them to only follow 7 laws to get a share in the world to come. No, we tell him that by observing these mitzvot, he will merit life in the world to come. For there is no completely righteous man other than a master of wisdom who observes the mitzvot and knows them. Halakha 4. We tell him, and this is in quotation marks, this is what we are supposed to literally say. Know that the world to come is hidden away only, I've highlighted the word there only, for the righteous. They are the Jews. The fact that you see Israel suffering difficulty in this world reflects the good that is hidden away from them. For they cannot receive an abundance of good in this world as the Gentiles do. For their hearts may become haughty, and they will err and lose the reward of the world to come. As Deuteronomy 32:15 states, Jeshurun became fat and rebelled. Okay, Halakha 5. The Holy One, blessed be He, brings upon them an abundance of retribution solely so that they will not perish, for all other nations will perish and they will prevail. We elaborate on this concept to make them feel cherished. Instead of pushing them away a minimum of 3 times, we make them feel cherished and encourage them. Probably something different than what your rabbis are usually saying about the conversion process. If the prospective convert retracts and does not want to accept the mitzvot, he goes on his way. If he accepts their observance, we do not have him wait, but instead we circumcise immediately. So we don't make him wait for years. If he accepts it, we circumcise him immediately. Why? Let's look at the commentary. For we do not postpone the performance of a mitzvah. Certainly we don't postpone the performance of mitzvah for years. So this is where the word biah comes in. We do it right away if he accepts, right during that initial conversation. If he was already circumcised, we draw the blood of the circumcision from him. This is the hatafat brit. We wait until he heals entirely and then immerse him. Why do we wait until he heals entirely? Let's look at the commentary. For we fear that otherwise the immersion might cause the wound to become infected. So the commentaries ask, why don't we have him immersed first and then have him circumcised? Because after you go into the mikveh, you don't have to worry about it becoming infected. So why not put him in the mikveh and then do the circumcision? Because in this way, he will not have to delay his conversion any longer. So you see, we're trying to ask a question. How can we do this even faster? Get him in the mikveh, then do the circumcision. That way we don't have a time period for the circumcision to heal. So we can get it done miyad right away. The Ramban, Nachmanides, states that we fear he might refuse to become circumcised if we put him in the mikveh first, and this will be problematic. Why would it be problematic to put him in the mikveh and then do the circumcision so that we don't have to worry about the circumcision becoming infected? Why would it be problematic if he went into a mikveh and then decided not to be circumcised? It will be problematic because the immersion will have completed the conversion process. Meaning, if he goes into the mikveh and decides, I don't want to be circumcised, he's completed the process because of the mikveh. Now we have an uncircumcised person walking around that has converted. Hence, this is why we have him circumcised before the conversion is irreversible. Because a conversion is irreversible. There is no way to nullify it. Even if he went into the mikveh and then didn't get circumcised, it will have completed the conversion process, the mikveh, and the conversion will be irreversible. And that would be problematic. This is why nobody's going to convert you unless you're circumcised. And if you are circumcised, you have to do the Hatafat Brit, just a little small drop of blood, and then you'll go into the mikveh. But you see, um, that's the legal process. So don't let people tell you otherwise. Okay. We wait until he heals entirely and then immerse him. And that's the reason why. Halakha 6. 3 judges stand over him and inform him about, again, some, and I'm not just reiterating what we read earlier, it says, again, some of the easy mitzvot and some of the more severe ones a second time. A second time? You mean we haven't met with this guy every week for years? We inform him of some of the severe ones a second time while he stands in the water. Meaning the second time you talk to this guy, he's already standing in the water. Let's look at the commentary on that. Rashi explains that since the immersion completes his conversion, the convert must accept the yoke of the mitzvah at that time. That's why we're telling him, even though the first time we talked to him, we gave him some of the light and some of the more severe mitzvot. The second time we talk to him, he's standing in the water, and we're informing him a second time because at that time is when he actually makes the acceptance. So, but we see from this, the second time we talk to the person, they're standing in the water already. If the convert was a female, women position her in the water until her neck, while judges are outside. This is for reasons of modesty because she's going to be completely naked. So the women are going to get her in the water up to her neck, while the male judges on the bet din are outside, so they don't see her naked. The judges then enter and inform her the same thing they inform a male about. Some of the easy mitzvot and some of the more severe ones while she is sitting in the water, up to her neck. Then she immerses herself in their presence, meaning her head goes underwater, her hair, everything has to be completely underneath the water. Afterwards, they turn their faces away and depart so that they will not see her when she ascends from the water. So she goes in up to her neck, the judges walk in, she goes down, they leave, and then she can come out. And because there's no circumcision for women, as we read with males, the mikveh completes the process. She doesn't have to be circumcised, obviously, so it's just a mikveh for her. So halakha 7. What is meant by resident alien? Here it's using the word ger toshav, which doesn't exist today. We don't have Yovel. We'll learn what Yovel is, but in the time when we don't have Yovel, we have no ger toshav. No such thing as a Noahide. You have converts, and you have Gentiles. There's no quasi in between categories anymore. But at a time when we did have Noahides, It says, what is meant by resident alien? That's what it's referring to. A Gentile who make a commitment not to worship false deities and to observe the other six universal laws commanded to Noah's descendants. He does not circumcise himself nor immerse. We accept this commitment at a time when we were allowed to have Noahides, which today we're not. We accept this commitment, and he is considered one of the pious Gentiles. Why is he called a resident? Because we are permitted to allow him to dwell among us in the land of Israel, as explained in Hilchot Avodah Zarah. Um, let's look at the commentary on that. Uh, See Hilchot Avodat Kochavim 10:6, which states that in an era when the Jews have undisputed authority over the land of Israel, they may not allow an idolater to dwell in the Holy Land. Only when a Gentile accepts these seven universal laws is he granted this privilege. The rationale for the Rambam's ruling here is derived from the proof text he cites in Exodus 23:33. They shall not dwell in your land lest they cause you to sin against me. Um, okay, this would be in an era when Jews have undisputed authority over the land, which we don't have right now. That would mean that we would have undisputed authority over the Jews in the land and the non-Jews in the land. We would be in control over all of it. That's not the case today. So, yeah, we don't have Ger Toshav today. Okay, Halakha 8. We accept resident aliens, Ger Toshav, only during the era when the Jubilee is observed. This is Yovel that I was talking about. Commentary on here. The Jubilee must be observed only when the entire Jewish people are dwelling in the Eretz Israel. Therefore, when the tribes of Reuben and Gad and half the tribe of Manasseh were exiled by the kingdom of Assyria, this took place about 150 years before the destruction of the first temple. The laws of the Jubilee ceased to be observed according to scriptural law. And this is why we don't have them. In the present era, which is at the time Rambam wrote this, and today, even if a Gentile makes a commitment to observe the entire Torah with the exception of one minor point, he is not accepted. So rabbis intentionally misquote this to say if a convert doesn't want to accept one point of rabbinical law, then we don't accept them. You are going to accept everything we tell you no matter what, otherwise you can't convert. This is specifically referring to a Gentile. So in the Talmud, there's three opinions given about what is a Noahide. The first opinion is that he doesn't have to accept anything. All he has to do is agree not to worship pagan deities. That's it. Clearly, this opinion was not accepted. To say that he doesn't have to do anything other than not worship pagan deities, that means he's allowed to steal, he's allowed to murder. That's the reason why that opinion was rejected. There was the second opinion, which is the one that Rambam gives us, and this is the halakha that was decided, was that they follow the seven. The third opinion was that they do everything that a Jew does. They keep all the mitzvot, all the halakha. The only difference between a ger toshav and the Jew is that a ger toshav would be allowed to eat a nevela. A nevela is not necessarily a non-kosher animal, but a Jew would not be allowed to eat it. A ger toshav would. Aside from that one thing, there's no difference between a Jew and a ger toshav. That opinion was also rejected. It was decided according to the second opinion, which is the halakha, which is the one that Rambam gives us, that they would follow the seven in an era where we were allowed to accept them. We're not allowed to accept them today. And that's what this is referring to. If a Gentile makes a commitment to observe the entire Torah, saying, I don't just want to keep the seven, I want to keep all of them, except for one minor point, all of them except I want to be able to eat this, or I want to be able to engage in shotness, or one point, we don't accept them. Meaning, you can't just take on seven today, and we'll accept you as a ger toshav. You can't. We don't accept them. If you either convert or you remain a Gentile. You're a Gentile if you keep none of them. If you keep seven of them. If you keep 100 of them. So that's what this is saying. In the present era, we don't accept resident aliens. This is the Noahide that it's referring to. So don't let them convince you that this is saying that you can't convert unless you accept everything except one minor point. This is referring to Ger Toshav. Halakha 9. When a servant is purchased from the Gentiles, these are like slaves. We don't have slaves today, so I'm only telling you this just to demonstrate what the law is. When a servant is purchased from the Gentiles, we do not say, "Why do you choose to convert?" Instead, we say to him, "Do you desire to enter the category of Jewish servants and become one of the upright among them?" If he agrees, he is informed about the fundamentals of the faith, about some of the easy mitzvot and some of the more severe ones. Recognize the language here. And the punishments and rewards associated with them as we notify a convert. Then we immerse him as we immerse a convert and inform him of the mitzvot while he is in the water. If he does not desire to accept the status of a servant, we are patient with him for 12 months. Afterwards, we sell him to a Gentile. It is forbidden to maintain him for a longer period. Commentary on that is that he must be sold to the diaspora or a Gentile. If after the 12-month period he still, we're patient with him, he still refuses to accept, at that time, then we have to get rid of him. We can't tolerate him for longer than that. If at the outset he established a condition that he would not be circumcised or immersed, but instead would be a resident alien, it is permissible to maintain him in that status. The commentary on that, the Ramah in Yoreh De'ah 267 writes that, Yoreh De'ah, this is coming from Shulchan Aruch, writes that in the lands where he lived, Central Europe, it was forbidden to convert a Gentile to Judaism. Therefore, it is taken for granted that the servant was purchased on the condition that his status not be altered. Hence, he may be maintained indefinitely as a Gentile. So it's not saying that we can't convert him. It was saying in the lands, the European lands that this Gentile came from, he was not allowed to convert to Judaism. So it's not saying that we can't convert him. It's saying his land, and his government would not allow him to convert. Just like in places today, like in India, the government says it's illegal to go over there and convert people. That's what this is describing. So he could be maintained in that status if at the time you purchased him, again, we're not purchasing slaves today, but in that time, a condition could be made that when we purchase him, that we can maintain him in that status. Okay, a servant may be maintained in this status only during the era when the Jubilee is observed, which is not this era. And this is another reason why we cannot maintain them in this condition. You convert or you're a Gentile. That's it. Halakha 10. The only sexual women with whom a Gentile forbidden to engage in relations are his mother, his father's wife, his maternal sister, a married woman, a male, and an animal, as will be explained in the laws of kings and their wars. Other incestuous relations are forbidden. The Jews are permitted to them. Halakha 11. When a Gentile converts or a servant is freed, he is like a newborn baby. Any relatives whom he had as a Gentile or servant are no longer considered his relatives. If both he and they convert, he is not liable for relations with any of them. Okay, so when you convert, your biological parents are considered to be not your parents anymore. Your new family is with Jews. So your biological parents are considered Gentiles like the rest of the Gentiles, which are not your family anymore. So the issue comes up. You mean, well, if they're not my family, then I'm allowed to marry my biological mother? That was the case. It was changed, and we're going to see why here. Halakha 12. According to scriptural law, a convert may marry his mother or his maternal sister after they convert. Nevertheless, our sages forbade this so that the converts will not say, "We came from a more severe level of holiness to a less severe one." Meaning, yesterday, this relationship between me and my mother was forbidden. You weren't allowed to do it. But now that I convert, it's permitted. So when I was a Gentile, I was not allowed to marry my mother. But now that I've converted to Judaism, now I'm allowed to marry that woman, even though she's not considered your family anymore. It's still your biological mother. So the sages prohibited that. Similarly, when a convert engages in relations with his mother or his sister when they have not converted, it is considered as if he had relations with a woman with whom he was not related. So, Halakha 13. What is the law that applies to converts with regard to relations with their relatives? As we explained, if one was married while a Gentile to his mother or his sister and they converted, we separate them as explained above. If he was married to any of the other forbidden relations and he and his wife converted, they are not forced to separate. Okay? A convert is forbidden to marry his maternal relatives after they convert, according to rabbinical law. So nobody today is marrying their biological relatives. So we're going to skip over a couple of these, like Halakha 14, when two twin brothers were not conceived in a state of holiness. 15, 16, 17. If you decide you're going to get into a relationship with your mother or your sister, then revert back to these halachot. It's not happening today, so we're not going to spend time going over it. Halakha 18. It appears to me, so that means Rambam's giving you his opinion here. It appears to me that if a servant engages in homosexual or sodomite relations, they should be executed. For these two prohibitions are universally applicable. So it's saying they should be executed, meaning both of them. So if servants, again, we don't have servants and slaves today, but if they, plural, meaning two of them, are engaging in homosexual or sodomite relations, they, again, plural, should be executed, meaning both of them. You don't say, well, this one was on one end of it, this one was on the other end of it, so we execute this one and not that one. They, both of them. So why is this brought up? That if servants are doing this, that they are executed? I think the reason why it's saying this is because of the next halakha, halakha 19. Servants who are freed are like converts. All of the relationships forbidden to converts are forbidden to them, and all those permitted to converts are permitted to them. Again, we don't have slaves today, so this is not really applicable. I'm just teaching the law. A person may give his maidservant to his own servant or to a servant belonging to his colleague, meaning he's kind of pimping them out. At the outset, he may give one maidservant to two servants, meaning you're not necessarily giving this maidservant to your other servant, the female to the male, and that's it. You can give one female to two male servants because the commentary here on this says we do not enforce monogamy. So you could give one servant to multiple servants. Again, we're not doing that today. But I think this is why the previous halakha 18 is saying if there's any homosexual or sodomite relationships going on, whether they are engaging in it or you're giving one to another to engage in it, they would both be executed. Okay, so at the outset, he may give one maidservant to two servants because we don't force monogamy, nor must they follow any restrictions. Instead, they are like animals. There is no difference whether a maidservant is set aside for a servant or not, for there is no concept of marriage except within the Jewish people or among Gentiles themselves, but not among servants themselves or between servants and the Jewish people. And that completes chapter 14. So we have the introduction to the laws of conversion. We have the actual law in Issurei biah 13 and 14. What we're going to do now in the next video is we're going to see where does Rambam get this from. Is he making it up? So we're going to go through the Talmud to see what that says. Spoiler alert, says the exact same thing that he gives us. And then we're going to go through the Shulchan Aruch, which comes a few hundred years after Mishnah Torah. And another spoiler alert, we're going to see the exact same thing. So it's one of the unique things about Judaism. You've heard two Jews, three opinions. Anywhere you find the topic of conversion, in the Talmud, the Mishnah Torah, the Shulchan Aruch, it says the exact same thing. So if you want to skip the next video where we go through the Talmud and the Shulchan Aruch, and just take my word for it, you're going to see the exact same thing. You now know how to perform conversions. That's the halakha, that's the law on how to do conversions, what we learned in Issurei biah 13 and 14. If you want to join me in the next video to see the Talmud and the Shulchan Aruch, you're welcome to. That will be the next video, and that's pretty much all you need to know about conversions to Judaism.